Hello, welcome. I think I don't see anyone else coming through the door, so I think we're all here, and it's 6 o'clock, and it's time to start. Can everyone hear me? Can you hear me now? Is it better? Okay, let me put this in. Is this better? Oh, good, okay. My name is Barbara Lippard, and I'm a member of the League of Women Voters, and I'd like to thank you all for coming tonight and attending our candidates forum. You know, it's so nice to see that this room is full and everyone is interested in voting for our candidates for town council. We'd also like to thank the candidates for participating tonight, and we look forward to a stimulating discussion of the issues. And the candidates are, for Ward 1, Daniel Anthony and Alex Brown. Ward 3, Steve DeSimone and Amy Fee. And Ward 6, Rex, and I'll let you pronounce your name.
Garniewicz.
Oh, great.
But I go by Rex. Just call me Rex.
Okay, Rex and Melinda Tunner. Tunner, right. So it's Rex, right. So thank you.
Tunner.
Tunner, right. So thank you so much for participating in our forum. Our moderator this evening is Kay Roshnow. She's co-chair of the League of Hilton Head Island and Bluffton, and has been a long-time chair of the League, and I'm sure many of you know her. Our editor tonight is Joan Klein-Schulman, who is over there, who be, your questions will be picked up by our volunteers in the back, and Joan will review them for consistency and repetition and civility. This forum is being broadcast over Beaufort County TV Channel, and we're not doing a Zoom tonight, but because of Rex's travel schedule, there's a possibility that for the first time we were going to be having one candidate on a Zoom and the rest of us here in person. Lastly, the League has a few rules. Some of you have the hard copy of the League, but I have to read them to you so we all understand what the rules are for the forum. So here goes. Welcome to our candidate forum. This forum is not a debate. Rather, the intent is to allow each candidate to present his or her views to an audience on a range of topics. Our moderator, which is Kay, and our timekeeper, which is Barbara Hammis, who is sitting here, will ensure that all candidates are treated with respect and fairness. Similarly, we ask the question to also maintain an environment of respect and civility, so that all audience members can hear all the candidates' response, and so that we allow the most time possible for questions and answers from the candidates. We ask all the audience members not to hold up signs, banners, or any other items for the purpose. This includes hand gestures. Not applaud or in any other way demonstrate support or non-support for a candidate. Persons doing so will be asked to leave. Audience members will have the opportunity to ask questions, and I believe most of you have been handed out white index cards and pencils to ask your questions. And if you didn't receive a card or you need a pencil, after the questions from the League, just hold your hand up and we'll give you a card and more pencils, and then the editor will review the cards. Okay, so you have questions in writing on index cards distributed by League members. Please limit the questions to one index card, one question per index card, and indicate the topic of the question in the upper right-hand corner. All questions must be addressed to all candidates. A League member will screen the questions to avoid duplication and ensure relevance and civility. Due to time constraints, not all questions can be asked and answered. Well, thank you again for your attendance. And I also must say that the League is a nonpartisan organization and neither supports or opposes a political party or candidates for office. And now I will have moderator Kay.
Okay, good evening. I know you can hear my voice and I also talk loud. Raise your hand if you can't hear me. Okay, good. Okay, the way that we're going to proceed is we have 4 questions that were developed by the League. They are timed. We'll rotate between the various candidates so that not one person has to go first or last each time. Barb Hummus, as Barbara Lippard mentioned, is our timekeeper. She will give you a sign when you have 30 seconds left and when it's time to end your comments. Are there any questions about that? Okay, well, let's get going. The first question is going to go, I'm going to start with Daniel Anthony, Ward 1. Tell us about yourself and why you are running. What do you hope to accomplish if elected?
Well, I'm running to represent all the voices in Ward 1. That those voices that feel like they have been cheated, they're not included in the conversations that directly impact their communities, their neighborhoods. These are individuals who are mostly made up of the workforce, and I've been in the workforce for over 40 years, all the time I've been here on the island. I have been here 40 years. I met my wife here, got married here. My kids and grandkids are born here, and I am a local businessman. Had my business for 30 years. I'm in the construction industry. My business does renovations. So that is pretty much who I am and what I'm about. These people need help, and I'm there to help them.
Okay, thank you. Alex Brown, tell us about yourself and why you are running. What do you hope to accomplish if reelected?
Thank you. My name is Alex Brown. I am your current Town Council Ward 1 representative. In that role, I am the chairperson of the Finance and Administrative Committee. I am the liaison to the Island Recreation Board of Directors, which is the Parks and Rec arm for the town of Hilton Head. In an attempt to bring affordable housing to Hilton Head, I also serve on the North Point Advisory Committee. I am a board of director for the Gullah Geechee Historic Neighborhood Community Development Corporation. We call it the CDC. I also, in my spare time, work a full-time job for a company called Resort Retail Associates. I've been there for 35 years. I am the vice president of operations. I thank the league for holding this event tonight, nonpartisan event, I'd add. I look forward to a great discussion this evening. Thank you.
Sorry, no applause, please. If there's an infraction, I have to ask you to leave. Okay, so moving on. Steve DeSimone, tell us about yourself and why you are running. What do you hope to accomplish if elected?
Hi, I'm Steve DeSimone. I'll be running for Ward 3. First, I want to let my opponent know and everyone here know that she's been using the word developer in her meet and greets, and Steve DeSimone is not a developer. He's never been a developer. Just want to make that clear to begin with. But I moved here in 1986. The town of Hilton Head needed an engineer, and they had just incorporated 2 years prior. And so I took that position, and there were less than a dozen of us that worked for the town at that time. I stayed at the town for 2 years, 2.5 years. We originated the initial LMO, Land Management Ordinance, and it was adopted in 1987. After leaving the town of Hilton Head, I went to work for Sea Pines as their resident engineer, where I took care of all of their infrastructure, roads, storm drainage, and things like that. A couple years later, I moved on to Wexford, and I was their resident engineer for 2 years, where we rebuilt the lock, rebuilt the harbor walls, took care of the highways, and took care of all of their stormwater drainage and infrastructure. I opened my first business in 1991, and have been working for the residents of Hilton Head for almost 38 years now. Everything that I do, everything that I build, I'm a contractor, has been for the residents. I got 30 seconds left, so I want to thank the League of Women Voters for having us here tonight. You know, living in a house with 4 girls, a wife and 3 girls, I understand that I get to speak every now and then. I'm glad I only have 30 seconds. But but that's about it. But what I want to work on is I got to work on the LMO because it's a rewrite time. I want to work on the 278 corridor from the bottom of the bridge to the Cross Island Parkway. And I want to talk about working with SCDOT by taking over the roads on Palmetto Bay Road, Sea Pine Circle, Pope Avenue, and Coligny to start with. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. For Amy Fee, tell us about yourself and why you are running. What do you hope to accomplish if elected?
Thank you. Thank you to everyone who's out tonight to come and listen to the candidates. My name is Amy Fee, and my husband and I first visited Hilton Head Island in 2001. And like all of us on our visits, we were enchanted. It was a 4-day, 3-night tour of the Marriott in Palmetto Dunes. My vision for Hilton Head Island is based on my experience living here and working here and listening to the people who've shared their vision with me as well. I think we need to achieve a balance for our residents and for our visitors. It's time that we revisit our values, our founding values of Hilton Head Island. I think we've been good stewards, but I think we need to do better. We must protect all that makes Hilton Head great. I think we are at a tipping point, and we need to decide which road we want to go down. Do we want more, or do we want quality? We need balance. We have to reach a consensus on mutually acceptable solutions through civil conversation, through discussion, through communication. It takes all of us to get it right the first time. Residents complain that their quality of life is declining and that short-term rentals are invading their single-family resident neighborhoods. I think we can right-size that with some minor limits on occupancy and parking. Thank you.
Thank you. Rex Garniewicz, tell us about yourself and why you are running. What do you hope to accomplish if elected?
Thank you. I have 25 years of experience in nonprofit operations, and one of the great things about nonprofits is they have two things they look at. They look at serving their mission, serving the people of the community, and having a strong financial background. And I like to combine those two things. One of the reasons I decided to run is that I was asked to do so, and the other reason is I thought I could bring value to the town council. My background is in environmental science, anthropology, and archaeology. And throughout my career, I've always been interested in balancing nature with people. And I think that is the fundamental principle upon which Hilton Head Island was originally developed. You obviously have to have some impact on nature when you develop a community, but that impact should be limited as much as possible. And so I find in the 10 years that I've been here, I have fallen in love with this place, the beautiful environment, the people that live here. And I'm interested in preserving the character of Hilton Head Island, the character that it was originally intended to have. And that includes the principles of early development and also the people and communities that lived here before it was developed. And so one of my goals, I think, is to preserve the things that are great about Hilton Head Island, to think carefully about the types of visitors we want to bring in here, and how we want to redevelop parts of the island. And so I run a business that depends on tourists, as a lot of people on this island do, but I want to see that we are recruiting tourists to this island that share our values, that this is a safe and secure place and a beautiful place to live in. Thank you.
Thank you, Rex. And for Melinda, is it Tunner?
Tunner.
Tunner, sorry. Tunner. Tell us about yourself and why you are running. What do you hope to accomplish if elected?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank the League for the opportunity for us to get together today and talk about these issues. My name is Melinda Tunner, and I am running for Town Council in Ward 6. I'm a retired executive with over 30 years of experience with a Fortune 100 company and a background in finance. In my 30s, I was a controller of an $800 million organization, and at 40, I was an appointed officer and eventually ran programs of $2 billion. Also during that time, I was on the board of directors of a small nonprofit in my local community. And I shared my talents in business acumen, and what I got back in return was a sense of community that I had never felt before. And I knew from then on that that's what I wanted to do when I retired, was to spend time supporting the community. We bought our home 10 years ago, and a couple years later we retired, and that's when I started on this journey. I started off working as a poll clerk, managing a location on election day, and then I ran for the board of directors in my local community at Palmetto Hall. I'm on my second term. I've been treasurer and president. Then I started taking a look at some grassroots efforts with the town, and the first one I got involved with was Arbor Nature. And that exposed me to the town's processes, and I realized that this is where I wanted to focus my time. In regards to what I'd like to focus on and accomplish, I want to ensure we implement solutions for our most strategic and pressing issues. And that includes the preservation of our unique character, overdevelopment, workforce issues, and a healthy balance of tourism, all while being good stewards of public dollars and the environment. And we also need to identify and focus on emerging needs of our island, so we will continue to be an outstanding place to live, raise a family, and retire.
Thank you. Moving on to the second question. Let's see, Steve DeSimone. What is your position on the proposed North Point Workplace Housing Neighborhood Project and your suggestions for additional affordable housing?
Oh, you jumped around on us. Yeah, let me flip. And you made me go first. Thank you. I'm for North Point. I think it's a good project. I think that 11 acres, let me give you some statistics in case you don't know. That 11 acres has a 65-year lease term on it. There's 160 one-bedroom, two-bedroom, and three-bedroom units. All that's going to be built with no federal dollars. No federal dollars, only grants. And 50% of that is less than an 80% AMI. That's your average median income. And I think it's a great idea. Also, in addition to North Point, I think the opportunity for Bryant Road and that area is going to be a good spot for the town to look at and see if we can get some neighborhood development in there for that area. So as far as North Point goes, I'm a green light. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next person, Amy Fee. What is your position on the proposed North Point Workplace Housing Neighborhood Project and your suggestions for additional affordable housing?
Thank you. The proposed Northport Housing Project is a step in the right direction. We've been trying for 10 years to get workforce housing started on this island. We've got a responsibility and a role to play in developing workforce housing solutions. We need our essential workers here on the island. The average age of the Hilton Head Island resident is 59.8. The national average is 38.6. We need to have some young folks here to support our community, to become leaders for the future, and to take care of us in certain roles that we won't be able to do. The project is a public-private partnership, and with that, we won't be using federal money, but there will be some public funds going toward it. But the private sector has also stepped up and has put a lot of money towards that project. So I think we've got more to do. I think we need a comprehensive plan for the island. We need to look at the space, and we need to figure out what's best right development for that space to solve this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't think I mentioned it's 1.5 minutes for this question. So, Rex, what is your position on the proposed North Point project and your suggestions for additional affordable housing?
Thank you. I think affordable or workforce housing is one of the key issues that this upcoming council will be tasked with dealing with. And I think it needs sort of multiple solutions. I think there's some private investment that needs to take place. I think the town has to play part of a role in solving this problem. I particularly have looked at the North Point project from a critical perspective, and I've been very pleased with what I've seen there in terms of its sustainability and the requirement that people remain in the workforce while they live there, the ability of the town to control the maintenance of that property through its lease agreement. And I think it's really a strong model. I've looked at workforce housing as a business owner that needs to attract a workforce here. And I think the North Point project in particular exceeded my expectations in terms of maintaining that type of workforce housing long term. But I think we also need to look at some private nonprofit partners like Habitat for Humanity. I think business owners will look at providing housing for some of their employees. And a lot of people will still have to commute onto this island because of the number of people we need in the workforce here. And so I think we need that multifaceted approach. And I would like to see the town support all aspects of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Melinda, Tunner, what is your position on the proposed North Point project and your suggestions for additional affordable housing?
I think the North Point Workforce Housing Neighborhood is a great example of public-private partnerships, but I believe there is some continued work that needs to be done in regards to the design because the level of impervious surface is well above the current zoning. And we need to make sure that our stormwater management system is working properly. In regards to other ideas for workforce housing, I commend businesses that get involved and take on this issue by either building housing or leasing apartments on behalf of their workforce. I'm also an advocate for looking at incentives for developers so that they take the risk and receive the reward if they build workforce housing and adaptive use of commercial buildings. We must review public-private partnerships for other opportunities. I also think we need to focus on advocating for home ownership. A lot of the ones that we hear about are rental units, and the greatest way to create generational wealth is through home ownership. And lastly, I think measurement is the key, understanding when we invest money, what we get in return so that we can make better decisions in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Daniel, Anthony, what is your position on the proposed North Point housing project and your suggestions for additional affordable housing?
The North Point project, on face value, I think it's a good thing. However, any development, because I'm in the business, I have a tendency to look at the negative impacts first and address those issues prior to giving a full heads up on it or a green light. The things I see with the North Point, although everybody else has stated the obvious with it, the things I see is where it's located at. It's located on the westbound lanes of 278 when all of the work is east. I would like to know about the traffic patterns, how we plan on dealing with that, especially with the expansion of the corridor. And what about, this is going to be families in there with children. They're going to want to go to school. So how are they going to get to school safely? We have to look at all these things, the drainage, everything. But all in all, I think it's a good thing. I just really would like to see how they address those issues. And as far as more affordable housing, it has been talked about for years to convert commercial space into apartments or dorms or rentals. And we have a ton of buildings on this island that are abandoned. It would be an easy fix. The imprints there, the building footprints there, the parking's there. I think that would be a good step in the right direction.
Thank you. Alex Brown, what is your position on the proposed North Point housing project and your suggestions for additional affordable housing?
Thank you. First, let me say that I'm pleased to hear that my potential colleagues are in favor of housing, it sounds like to me. Obviously, I'm in favor of the North Point project. I've worked very hard at that on the committee. I'm just going to mention 2 points that I'm very proud of that are within the development agreement. One is there's a controlled rent mechanism there. So folks will not pay more than 30% of their income in this housing unit, okay? I think that's very important to state. The other is we talk a lot about housing, but we tend not to talk about the people. This project will have programming that is ideal for working families. There may be childcare there, there may be after-school programs there, but the quality of life for those that come here to serve us and our visitors is very important. I think we need to keep that in mind as we're having these conversations. I'll just close with, we're serious about housing at the town of Hilton Head. We created a housing fund. It's got $4 million in it right now. Those monies are being pulled down from tax dollars, not your property taxes. tax dollars, and that's something that I fought very hard with our state legislation to make sure it happened. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question, 1.5 minutes, will go to Rex Garniewicz first. What is your position on controlling growth? How will you work to balance commercial development and tourism with residential and historic neighborhoods?
So I think that Hilton Head Island has probably grown too fast. And I don't know how you can't put that genie back in the bottle, but you can be careful about how it continues to grow. And I think that's really important. And the LMO has a lot to do with how we can control that. I also think some of the things that we've done to increase tourism on the island have had a negative effect. And I'm particularly interested in drawing visitors to this island that share our vision for what this island is like. This includes people that care about the environment and history, people that care about arts and culture, and of course people that come for golf, tennis, and the beach. But I would like to see us really focus on drawing tourism to this island that contributes to the vibrancy of our economy. And I don't know that we always do that very well. And I think that is where we see the pressure is from, not from locals who are living here, but from the number of tourists that come onto the island. Thank you.
Thank you. Melinda Tunner, what is your position on controlling growth? How will you work to balance commercial development and tourism with residential and historic neighborhoods?
Would it help if I turn this on? The number one top of mind issue that I hear when I go out and speak with people is about overdevelopment. And the recent trends and assessment report show that there's 1,500 acres of land that are undeveloped and ready to be developed. If you apply the current zoning, you could have an additional 10 to 14,000 more units on the island. And is that what we want? So in order to control that, we need to look at our LMO changes. The LMO was supposed to be completed last year, and the town council is still working on it. And so it's going to be important to continue to focus on all those components in order to control our growth. We also need to thoughtfully purchase green space. The best way to stop development is to purchase land and keep it green. And so using those dollars from the environmental tax that was passed would be a way, as well as real estate taxes.
Okay, thank you. Daniel Anthony, what is your position on controlling growth? How will you work to balance commercial development and tourism with residential and historic neighborhoods?
The only way that I think that you're going to be able to control any kind of overdevelopment is through zoning. The land management ordinance is the town's Bible as far as building goes. We have seen what the rewrite of 2014 did. I mean, that was a developer's dream. And that's why we have a lot of the problems we have today. So through this new rewrite, we backtrack, get better, more prudent methods of developing. Where do we develop? How do we develop? What needs to be changed? What are the uses of zoning? What needs to be taken out? What needs to be added in? That's how you control the overdevelopment on the island. As far as the balance between the commercial and the residential, we have to find that balance. We truly do. This island is going to self-destruct. We can't keep treating it the way we do. We have gone far and wide with development and with not taking the residents' concerns seriously. Our workforce has diminished considerably. Workforce will never get back. And we did that to ourselves. So we have to have a better way of going forward. And it needs to be a focus that is resident-based. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex Brown. What is your position on controlling growth? How will you work to balance commercial development and tourism with residential and historic neighborhoods?
Sure, thank you. Very interesting question because many of us may not remember that there was not much growth on Hilton Head before the bridge. This is a beautiful place. Many of you decided to come here and make this your home. Growth management is something that we take very seriously. Obviously, with Hilton Head being as close to build out as it is, we have to be very intentional with what's next. The whole progression here, we approved the comprehensive plan back in 2020, and we knew from that point we would have to move forward to a future land use map, okay? And that's where we are now with our district planning. The key to this, however, is not just to have a blanket approach when it comes to zoning. We've heard that a lot here tonight. We need to be careful and intentional about different areas on Hilton Head and how we want to see them developed. The historic neighborhoods were mentioned. There are several plans that have been produced over the years that we have to refer back to as we move forward with the land management rewrite. And I also mentioned the green space that was spoke on earlier is very important. If the town wants to be intentional about what's going to happen on properties, buy the dirt, and we've done that.
Thank you. Steve DeSimone, what is your position on controlling growth? How will you work to balance commercial development and tourism with residential and historic neighborhoods?
Well, like I mentioned, when I got here in '86, one of our first objectives was to get the LMO written and adopted, and we did that. And part of that, let me back up. The reason the town of Hilton Head decided they wanted to incorporate was the shock of the building. I think it's called Hilton Head Resort now. Back in the day, it was called Stack Shacks, and it was shocking. And so it put the right group of people together, and they decided that we need to incorporate the town of Hilton Head and write our own rules and regs to curb this kind of development. What I didn't tell you before, I think, in my introduction was in 1996, I ran and was elected to town council. I'm used to sitting right here. And I served 2 terms on town council. And one of the things that we did, Mayor Tom Peoples and myself and a few others, is we put in the land bank. We were the originators of the people that started buying property to take it off the market. So that's what I'm all about. That's what I've been about for 38 years. We need to halt the push for new development, and we need to revitalize our blighted areas rather than just develop and go unchecked. Our development code should protect and not threaten the character of the well-being of our neighborhoods. And my platform's always been residents first, and that's the way we need to look at the new LMO.
Thank you. Amy Fee, what is your position on controlling growth? How will you work to balance commercial development and tourism with residential and historic neighborhoods?
Thank you. So throughout this process, we must always be sure to put island residents first and consider the effects of expansion on our communities and our historic neighborhoods. Expansion, while bringing better access and increased services to our residents and our visitors, we shouldn't sacrifice our lifestyle or our environment. Tourism plays a significant role in our economy, and when we work with the Chamber to bring visitors here who share our values, we can only do better. I believe in right-size, balanced development, and we have tools to use that have been mentioned: density, zoning, planning, transportation, and we should use them. They're tools in the toolbox. We need increased transparency and communication, fiscal responsibility, and consensus building. We have to listen to everyone, and it's a process. I spent 20 years in the food and beverage industry before I went back to school and went to work for Morgan Stanley, where I became a director of business development on the national level. I've sat at tables across from the C-suite and with top producers to reach agreement on the solutions that we could provide for our client. That talent and those skills are transferable right here. Thank you.
Thank you. The fourth question will be the last question from the league developed questions, and then we're going to switch over to the audience questions after this question. The League of Women Voters was founded over 100 years ago in 1920. Coinciding with the passage of the 19th Amendment, which gave women the right to vote. So voting has long been a core mission of the League. With that in mind, are you concerned, this will go to Alex Brown, are you concerned with election integrity in regard to providing every citizen's right to vote in free and fair elections? Why or why not? 1.5 minutes.
That's a great question. I will say that in 2020, I was huge on getting folks registered to vote, okay? And this time around, I am again. When we look at the Ward 1 data alone, with those that are over the age of 18 and those that are registered to vote, there's a 1,200 person difference there. That's huge. We tend to find there's a lot of voter apathy with our young people. We spend a lot of time encouraging our young people to have a voice in this democracy. So yes, I think that the integrity of our voting system is absolutely important, but more importantly is educating our young people that their voices do matter. I think we've got to do a better job in this community of that. Too often they feel as if they're ignored. That is not the case. And remember, that's our future. 30 years, they will fill this room, not us. Thank you.
Thank you. I should mention that I was at the Hilton Head High School today, where we basically were trying to communicate with about 300 students during lunch hour, so you can imagine how successful we were. But we've got a lot of programs going, and hopefully we'll continue to make progress. Thank you, Alex. This question for Daniel Anthony. Are you concerned with election integrity in regard to providing every citizen's right to vote in free and fair elections? Why or why not?
No, I am concerned about it. I'm concerned with, and let me say this, I think everyone should vote. Nobody should be left out. Even in this election that we have between me and Alex here, I don't want anybody to be left out, whether they're voting for me or not. I want to see everybody vote. Now, Alex has mentioned that how many people are registered and how many people are not. We did a deep dive too and found out how many registered voters actually voted. It's alarming how many people sit at home and don't vote for whatever reason. A lot of that is I've got young kids. Well, not young, they're in their 30s now. They don't feel like they are important. They don't feel like their vote matters. They feel like the rich are always going to control everything. And part of the reason why I'm running is to show them that this little guy here, this poor guy here, he's going to make a difference. I need everybody to believe that. There are a lot of people in Ward 1 who feel just like I do, and I am reaching out to every single one of them. I want to see everybody vote this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question for Steve DeSimone. Are you concerned with election integrity in regard to providing every citizen's right to vote in free and fair elections? Why or why not?
Well, I think it's obvious that we all want everyone to have the opportunity to vote. So, do I think it's fair? Mostly, I do think it's fair. Do I think enough people were voting? No. Earlier it was mentioned about the youth. When I was on town council in 1996 to 2002, I was 36 years old. And I was out-aged by 30 years in every meeting that I was in. It really, and it made a difference. It made a difference. They wanted to hear what the young guy had to say, the guy that's been in the trenches, right? Did they act on it all the time? Absolutely not. But what I'd like to see happen in the town is I'd like to see our youth, our 30-year-olds, our 40-year-olds right up here. And we got to figure a way to do that. And the only way that we can do that is because they are working individuals, is we have to incentivize it to allow the youth to run for office. And if you get the youth in office and we get some 30, 40-year-olds up here, then 30 and 40-year-olds will be in the audience. And it'll make a difference. Things will change for us. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a very good point with getting the youth involved. And so we are also working on that as well. Okay, so the next question for Amy Fee. Are you concerned with election integrity in regard to providing every citizen's right to vote in free and fair elections? Why or why not?
Thank you. So the first thing I think we need to think about is getting those 30 and 40-year-olds living here on the island if they're going to participate in government. So that's the first thing. I do have some concerns about gerrymandering and about purging of voter rolls. That concerns me. I'm not concerned with election integrity. Like Melinda, I was also a poll worker, and I've seen the steps and the processes of what takes place in an election. Young people, sometimes they're apathetic. They don't know what's going on. Some of us older folks don't know what's going on because we're involved with our own life. And I think if we better communicate to them through their vehicles, we'll get more participation. If we do more fun stuff like the Jonesville barbecue and the Muddy Creek barbecue to get input and get people involved, I think that'll make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Melinda Tunner, are you concerned with election integrity in regard to providing every citizen's right to vote in free and fair elections? Why or why not?
I am concerned about election integrity, and that's why I got involved in being a precinct worker during election day. I am a type of person where if I feel there's an issue, I want to get involved. I don't want to sit on the sidelines and second guess. And so when we moved here, that's what I did. I've been working the polls for over 4 years, and it was an eye-opening experience. And I left feeling very good about what I saw. And it all starts with welcoming the registered voter and making sure that they have a valid ID so that you can confirm who they are before they start the voting process. And then we go through the voting process and complete it. It is scanned. It is also saved. That ballot is saved so that it can always be there in case you need to do an audit and you need to circle back. And the responsibility of the people that are running those polling locations, it is really stressful because at the end of the night, you have to account for every single ballot. You start off with so many are processed, you have to account for every single ballot. And if you can't account for every single ballot, there is a problem. And so, as I said, I feel very good about the process and the training here. And again, if you have concerns, go ahead and get involved. I think you'll be impressed. Thank you.
Thank you. Rex, are you concerned with election integrity in regard to providing every citizen's right to vote in free and fair elections? Why or why not?
I believe in our democracy, and I have great faith in our elections. What I would like to point out, I think, in this particular election, what the other candidates might not have mentioned, is the town council is a nonpartisan election. And I think that's really important for people to think about when they vote, that they're voting on us based on what we say and our like individual values. And these local elections make a huge difference. Every election that I voted in, I brought my young son with me. And that's because I want to instill in him that it's important to vote in every election. And he gets the little election sticker that says I voted, and he wears it for like a month. And the funniest thing is, the last time he got the sticker and put it on, he had the wax paper from the back of it. And he's like, in the polling place, he says, "Where's your recycling?" And so like youth are really important, and we can inspire them with our actions. And by addressing issues that are important to them. And I think we should do that. And I encourage everyone to vote in this election.
Thank you. I should also say that Paige Cope, running in Ward 6, was invited, but she had a conflict, so she was unable to attend tonight, but she was invited. Okay, so audience question number 1, and this will go, I'm going to go back to my original rotation, Daniel Anthony. One of our elected officials has proposed passing legislation that would prohibit municipalities from redistricting short term. Do you support such legislation?
I think I meant restricting short-term rentals. Is that correct?
Well, that's, okay, sorry.
Yeah, could you read
I
that
think that's
again,
what
please?
it is. Okay, let me reread it. One of our elected officials has proposed passing legislation that would prohibit municipalities from restricting short-term rentals. Do you support such legislation?
No, absolutely not. It goes against our value, our traditional value of home rule. Municipalities, local municipalities should control their own local communities. The state shouldn't get involved in that. I don't agree with that, no way, shape, or form. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Alex Brown, one of
I got
our...
a question. I'm good.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Kay. No, I don't agree with, I think it's Senate Bill 953. We should absolutely have control of our own destiny here locally. The town is currently in the midst of further regulating short-term rentals on its own. We have done a very good job, in my opinion, in gathering data so that we can create regulations that make sense for our residents and also make sense for the industry. It is a tug and pull. I think we're going in the right direction with looking at parking and occupancy. Those codes are going to be written here in a very short term. And I think what we'll see is that we've got a few bad actors out here that are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. If we have good regulations and good enforcements, we will start to root them out. So no to the question of supporting it, and yes to us moving forward with further regulations that make sense for our particular area.
Thank you. Steve DeSimone, do you support restricting short-term rentals?
I got that. Bill 953 is dead. I don't know if you know that or not, but that's a dead bill. We're talking about something that didn't happen, not going to happen, and in my lifetime, it'll probably not come back up. So, no, I didn't support it either. But as far as short-term rentals go, I think what we're doing here and the workshops that I've been in existing council talking about it. I know it's probably, I don't know for sure, but it may land on the new council. It may get taken care of before the election. But yeah, I'm for some restrictions on short-term rental. I think most of you know that, maybe you don't, about 3 or 4 years ago, there were only 1,500 short-term rentals. And now there's over 7,000 short-term rentals. And I attribute that, and I think everyone else would too, to COVID. So when the rest of the world was shut down, Hilton Head was a playground. And I appreciated that, to be honest with you. My family, my girls, they all came home because they were shut down where they were, the colleges and their jobs. And I got to be with my family for quite some time, and we had a great time. Not that I want another COVID, but we had a great time. Yeah, there's some restrictions that need to be put on short-term rentals, but as far as eliminating them, absolutely not. It's one of our lifelines. It's one of our lifelines for Hilton Head, and we have to have them.
Thank you. Amy Fee, do you support restricting short-term rentals?
So I support putting guidelines in place for short-term rentals as far as occupancy, parking restrictions, things like that. Things that will impact residents who live right next to them. When we moved down here full-time 11 years ago, all of the homes in our neighborhood were all residents. Now that's changed significantly. I'm surrounded by short-term rentals. And while I live in Forest Beach, close to the ocean, it was on the ocean side where all the short-term rentals were, not on the land side where we were. So things have shifted. But I will say that almost everyone has become a host these days, and there's a market saturation out there on the number of short-term rental properties. And I think what you're going to see is the markets are going to achieve an equilibrium, and some of those short-term rentals are going to move to a long-term fix because they can't support, they'll have a 12-month cash flow instead of just a few weeks out of the year because there are just so many of them. Thank you.
Thank you. Rex Garniewicz, do you support restricting short-term rentals?
I do not support the state not allowing us to make decisions that affect our town right here with town council, and I think everyone that's running is probably in agreement with that. The things I would like to point out is that the town has a great website about short-term rental complaints, and they have really been trying to manage this issue. And fewer than 10 properties account for more than 25% of the complaints. And so I agree with Alex that it's an issue of enforcement and resolving these problematic properties. And the town council really should work to do that. We don't want the state to tell us what to do. We want to look at this problem and find a local solution to it.
Thank you. Melinda Tunner, how do you support restricting short-term rentals?
It would be a no. I do not support that law. I believe in home rule. I think local municipalities should be the ones making the decisions as to how they want to handle short-term rentals because they understand their unique marketplace and their tourism model. And I think it's also important that private communities have the opportunity to vote on how they would like to handle short-term rentals as well. In regards to the rules regarding short-term rentals, I'm in agreement with the approach of the workshops that the town is doing and adding additional requirements, fines, inspections, parking limits. I think these are all things that we need to do because at the end of the day, what we're trying to balance is we want to protect the quality of life of our residents and also provide a great visitor experience. Now, in regards to the complaints, there is a website on the town, and it shows a very small number of complaints. But in my opinion, that does not reflect the entire amount of complaints. Most short-term rentals are in gated communities, and most complaints go to their security or their POA office. So one of the things I think we need to do is improve the measurement and be more holistic so that we can get a better idea of how many complaints there are.
Thank you. The next question, audience question, and this goes to Steve DeSimone. Would you consider imposing a 6-month moratorium on all new commercial building and all new condominium townhouse construction? If not, why not? A long question.
I'm not in favor of a moratorium. I think what we need to do is we need to get our button gear, we need to get our LMO fixed, and we need to take care of that situation inside, not outside. You know, back in the day, we enacted a couple moratoriums and it didn't go over very well. It's forcing an issue rather than fixing an issue for me, is not the answer. I just think we need to do it through a rewrite and get it adopted.
Thank you. Amy Fee, would you consider imposing a 6-month moratorium on new commercial building and new condominium construction? If not, why not?
So I wouldn't support a 6-month moratorium at this point in time. We were in this room just the other day and we were talking about changes to the land management ordinance. The planning department had a whole list of exemptions that they could make in respect to buffers and setbacks and things like that without conferring with the neighborhood or anything like that. So they were able to make exceptions rather than follow the rule. So that list, and it was a big list, has been put aside and retired for the moment. So I think future builds without using that exemption list, that automated exemption list that the planning department could put in place without notice to the area residents, is a good thing. And I think with the LMO rewrite coming on board, we'll get it done, some of it sooner rather than later. I think that'll help us tremendously. Thank you.
Thank you. Rex Garniewicz, would you consider a 6-month moratorium on all new commercial building and all new condominium townhouse construction? If not, why not?
No, I would not support that. And I understand that people want a simple solution to a complex problem, but I don't think the solution that we need. I think it involves people's rights and the LMO, and there's a lot of complicated factors there. Yes, I think that the solution needs to come from the town, and it has to come through the LMO. One of the issues affects parcels of land when they're acquired and added together, that you have higher density that's allowed, and that creates a huge issue, and that you might have a 6 unit per acre property in one neighborhood, and then a developer acquires a lot of land, lumps it together, and then has 12 or 18 units per acre, and it's out of scale and out of scope with what that neighborhood should be like. And so that has to be addressed, I think, with the LMO. And I agree that it should be done, quickly, because once this land's developed, you can't undevelop it. But no, I don't support a moratorium. I support quick action by town council.
Thank you. Melinda Tunner, would you consider imposing a 6-month moratorium on all new commercial building and all new condominium townhouse construction? If not, why not?
I do not agree with a moratorium for commercial or condominium development. I think we need to keep our doors open. And the reason we're talking about this is because we haven't addressed the LMO. And so I think that's where the pressure needs to be applied, and that's where the work needs to be done to get the LMO done. If the LMO was done, we wouldn't be having a question like this asking for a moratorium on future growth. So it's critically important that that gets completed.
Thank you. Daniel Anthony, would you consider imposing a 6-month moratorium on all new commercial building and all new condominium townhouse construction? If not, why not?
Well, I really wish you would have asked me this 2 years ago. At that time, I would have told you absolutely. The devastation that we saw in my neighborhood on Jonesville with the clear cutting of 29 acres was more than anybody could stand. And we absolutely had no clue what was going on. Nobody told us. There was no rules for somebody telling us. They just didn't. So back then, I would have said yes. With over that course of time, with things changing and the LMO being addressed and we got some things done, I would say now, no, I wouldn't support it. But I, like everybody else, I just want people to get things done. And I think they're moving okay. I really wish they'd move a little faster, but I understand why they can't move as fast as I want them to move. But no, I wouldn't support it now.
Thank you. Alex Brown, would you consider a 6-month moratorium on all new commercial and condominium development construction? If not, why not?
When I was coaching, I would tell the kids to keep your eye on the ball. Obviously, we know that we have issues when it comes to growth management here on Hilton Head, and the town is taking the appropriate steps to deal with that through our district planning and LMO rewrite. Part of the question mentioned commercial buildings. I want to make sure that people understand this is why the discussion is so important. Because when we look at our commercial building inventory, we've got dilapidated buildings, we've got restaurants that have been long-standing on Hilton Head that are moving elsewhere. So it's not just flipping the switch with a quick LMO change, it's understanding our conditions, understanding our trends here on Hilton Head so that we're making qualified decisions about our future growth patterns. So no, I don't support a moratorium, but what I do support is as we're giving staff direction, we're very concise with that direction so that they go do the work that they need to do to bring back policy for us to actually vote and take action on.
Thank you. The next audience question, how do you plan on handling eventual conflicts with other council members or committee members with opposing views? And that will go to Rex Garniewicz, 1.5 minutes. How do you plan on handling controversies and conflicts?
You know, I think there's sort of an area that we should be open for healthy debate and differences of opinion, and I appreciate those. I've had people share ideas that at first I didn't agree with, and then I came around to understanding why they were arguing that point, and I'm capable of changing my mind based on what I hear from other people, and I don't know all of my constituents, and so I look forward to hearing from them. And I think the town council should operate in the same way. I think that we should have discussions like at town council out in the open about differences of opinion and come to a resolution. And I think that's important because once we come to that resolution, we need to direct the town with a unified voice and allow the town manager and town staff to do their jobs. And so I think once those decisions are made, we have to sort of give the responsibility of carrying that out, carrying what we approve out to the town. And allowing them to do their job without additional sort of back and forth differences of opinion at town council.
Thank you. Melinda Tunner, how do you plan on handling conflicts with various town council members and committee members?
In my career, I had to manage some very large projects that impacted a lot of people. And so I've had a career of experience dealing with different points of view and having to bring people together with a common purpose and a common goal. And you do that through dialogue. And I think the approach that the town is taking now is the right approach. And it's about more workshops, because that's one of the things that I've noticed. I've been attending meetings for 14 months now, and I've noticed that it's difficult when the time that they talk is the time that they're voting and they're sitting up here. I think it's so valuable that they have the workshops where they can actually have a dialogue with each other and talk about their feelings and opinions about the things that they're looking at. What that does is it allows you new perspectives. It might change your opinion and you can come to a mutually beneficial agreement. So I think it's a change in process, and it's also a mutual respect.
Thank you. The next question, Daniel Anthony, how do you plan on handling conflicts with various town council members and committee members with opposing views?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. The reason why you have the conflict in the first place is because you have an opposing view. So in order for somebody to respect your point of view, you have to respect theirs. The only way that you're going to get ahead is if you communicate with one another, you respect one another, and you talk through the problem. There is always some area where you can compromise. Always. In everything I've ever done in my life, I've been in my business now for over 30 years. I've been on Hilton Head for over 40 years. I came from a family of 8 kids. So conflict is nothing new to me. So, but you have to be able to talk to people. And you have to be able to respect them if you want them to respect you. Now, sometimes you are just going to agree to disagree, which is why I'm here today. Because me and Alex don't see eye to eye on some things. Doesn't mean I have a conflict with him. We just don't agree. We agree to disagree. And that's it. But you have to find that you have to communicate. You have to. That's the only way you're going to get through those conflicts. Thank you.
Thank you. And that Alex Brown, how do you plan on handling conflicts with opposing points of view with council members and committee members?
One of my lifelong friends and I started our relationship with a fist fight. Can't remember why we were fighting, but I do know that we have an appreciation for one another at this point in our lives. Obviously, with me being the only Gullah Geechee person of council, I bring a very different perspective that not everyone can understand at the first glance. So I have to spend a lot of time having intimate conversations around what we're talking about, conflicts. I don't necessarily see it as conflicts. I sort of see it as misunderstandings. And having the opportunity to have those qualified conversations from someone that knows it intimately is important and healthy to our council. So I look forward to the tug and pull of differences of opinion so that we get to a better place here on Hilton Head.
Thank you. Steve DeSimone, how do you plan on handling opposing points of views and any conflicts with town council members and committees?
Okay. Actually, having been here before and having gone through this before and having sat with 7 of us, we handled conflicts so differently 35 years ago, 30 years ago than we do today. I hate to use the word, it's kind of appalling as to how things are going on and the conflicts that are going on. It's a trickle-down effect. I think the nation has trickled down into the classroom, and that classroom is here. This is our classroom. This is the beginning of politics, right? And it shouldn't be that way. He mentions he's the original Gullah Geechee representative. The best friend that I had on council was Bill Ferguson, who represented Ward 1. I mean, we loved each other. We had a great time. We had differences. Everyone had differences. We worked them out. No one ever raised their voice to each other. We worked these problems out. And I've met with some of the councilmen and council persons here, and I've talked to them and I've told them that I'm unhappy with the way they're running their business. And I think I told Alex one day, I said, Alex, I don't care if everyone totally disagrees with you. If you make a motion, I'm going to give you a chance to speak. I'm going to second your motion. I think it's bad business to shut someone down, especially in this position. Thank you.
Thank you. Amy Fee, how do you plan on or propose to handle conflicts or opposing points of view with a fellow town council member or committee?
So we all bring different perspectives and different experiences. What I've gone through and what my experience is versus what you've done, we bring different ideas to the table. I think it's critically important that we keep the lines of communication open, that we have workshops to include input from the community, that when we have workshops and town council meetings and there are 100-page presentations up there, that maybe there be some copies for the people to see before. I know that we can print them out online, but that's a lot of paper and that's a lot of ink, and ink isn't cheap these days. I do believe that we can work toward mutually acceptable solutions through discussion and conversation. We just can't have one marathon meeting of 5 hours or 6 hours to get to an agreement. It's exhausting. People work. People have to take medication. Real quick, my father was a landscape architect. My mother was an OR nurse. So I was out with my hands in the dirt, and I would have to come in and I would have to scrub them. So I would have to make those two ends meet, that yin and that yang, and I've always been able to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. The next audience question is going to go to Alex Brown. How do you feel about the recent changes to a tax law and how it applies to housing?
Yes, well, as I mentioned earlier, I was a supporter and helped our state delegation move through the process of getting that approved. Obviously, in order for us to move the housing initiative forward, it's going to take funding. And the fact that we were using dollars that are generated by our visitors to do so, it seemed to be a no-brainer for me. We do have to realize, however, that there's a sunset on this bill, okay? So it won't be around forever. So we need to act accordingly, make sure that we're using the funds appropriately to move forward projects. That could look like buying additional land for agencies like Habitat for Humanity so we can promote home ownership. There's a lot of land within the historic neighborhoods that could be utilized for housing. There may be some assistance to some of those that are in the audience tonight that are affordable housing developers at a very small scale within the historic neighborhoods. So we have to be very creative with that funding now that we have it, and I think we have grave opportunity to do so.
About the recent changes to the A tax law and how it will apply to housing.
I believe basically the same thing that Alex believes in. I think that any time that you can use accommodations tax money for purposes of buying green space, housing, whatever it is, it's all the more better without using our tax dollars to do it. I support it 100%.
Okay, thank you. Steve DeSimone, how do you feel about the recent changes to the A tax law and how it applies to housing?
Well, I mentioned earlier that I'm not a developer, and I'm not. I'm an engineer. But I've built a lot of stuff for developers. And I know a lot of developers. And I've talked to a lot of developers. And if the incentive is correct, and if the incentive's right here in the town of Hilton Head, you'll never need to use A-tax money. You'll never need to use tax dollars. These projects can be built with private money. And when we exhaust that completely, then absolutely, yeah, we still need to build them. But I don't think I'll have that problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Amy Fee, how do you feel about the recent changes to the A tax law and how it applies to housing?
So I see it a little bit differently. I think that we should be taking full advantage of the A-tax money for housing. There's so much housing that has to get done. Having it funded privately would not happen. If you change your zoning laws. If I buy a piece of property over here and it's zoned for 4 per acre, and I see that that's a good deal, and then all of a sudden I buy it and I want to change it and get 8 per acre housing units there, all of a sudden that land is worth a whole lot more than it was when I bought it. And I can turn that over and flip it and not do what I told you I was going to do. So I think we should take advantage of the monies that can be given to us. Public-private partnerships are beneficial, but they won't do it alone. And we won't have to foot the whole bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Melinda, Tunner, how do you feel about the recent changes to the ATAX law and how it applies to housing?
So I understand the intent of carving out money from ATAX for use in housing, and my only comment is I'm concerned about the impact to our organizations that apply for ATAX funding. So ATAX is used for tourism-related expenses for nonprofit organizations and the arts, and they come to us every year asking for amount of money for those organizations. So that's something to be mindful of.
Thank you. Rex, how do you feel about the recent changes, the ATAX law, and how it applies to housing?
Yeah, even several years before this law was passed, I saw nonprofits approaching the ATAX committee to try and help solve the workforce housing issue. And so I think passing the law really allows it to be monitored and regulated better in terms of how that money is being invested and whether it really is impacting workforce housing. And so I support it from that perspective, even though it does carve some money out of the ATAX funds that help a lot of nonprofits on the island. I believe workforce housing is so important that that needs to be done. And I think one of the things that I'm impressed with the town is that they're looking at sources of revenue that are not coming from property tax. That 70% of what the town invests in this community comes from revenue streams that are not your property tax. And this is one of the ways they can do that and work towards improving the town, the infrastructure on the town, and our quality of life, and doing things that are important for our community, like providing workforce housing that houses the nurses and that we depend on, and the EMS and fire department. Like those, if we don't have housing for those individuals on this island, we'll all suffer from it. Thank you.
Thank you. Now moving on to the final audience question. And then right after that, we're going to go to closing statements where each candidate will have an opportunity to summarize their positions and their closing statement to the group. So the last question, and this is going to go to Amy Fee. How will you include diversity, equity, and inclusion in discussions and decisions?
Thank you. So I would include diversity, equity, and inclusion in discussions as it meets the need of the community and reflects the population of the community. We'll look for the best candidates. We will try to find the best people, regardless of race, language, belief, religion, to sit in those seats and promote that ideal of equality for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve DeSimone, how would you include DEI in discussions and decisions?
I wouldn't. I'm not a DEI proponent. I'm about quality, and I don't care what you look like. I don't care how old you are. I don't care if you're a male or a female. If you qualify, you qualify. I'm blind, and but to align categories and what you're doing, well, I don't want to get into it, I guess, but no, I'm not, and for those reasons, thank you.
Thank you. Melinda Tunner, how would you include DEI in discussions and decisions?
I think as we make decisions and discussions, we should show mutual respect to everyone and appreciate different points of view. And I think if you do that, that's the golden ticket.
Thank you. Rex Garniewicz, how would you include DEI in discussions and decisions?
You know, I think it's really important to have viewpoints that come from people who have had different life experiences, and that's really important to me, and I think it's important to this island. You have people whose families have lived here for 5 or 6 or more generations, and a lot of us are newcomers to this island, and so I really want to hear from people who have a deeper understanding of this place than me when I'm dealing with issues that affect them. And so, like, I don't know if you call that DEIA, which seems like a loaded term now, but like, I think we should really encourage different perspectives and perspectives that aren't our own when the town council is making decisions. And I think that's really important.
Thank you. Daniel Anthony, how would you include DEI in discussions and decisions?
Well, I'd have to say, it would depend on what version of DEI you're talking about. I've heard so many different dialogues come up, different definitions, different people talking about this, that, and the other. And I'm not a very political person. I'm not a politician, don't ever want to be one, and this is exactly why I don't. Like Steve, if I have something that needs done, I pick the absolute best person for that. Doesn't matter what race, color, creed, man, woman, child, doesn't matter. Whoever fits the bill the best, that's who gets that ticket. I know that there's people out there, that scream about this, but to be honest with you, keep screaming because I don't know what you're talking about. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And lastly, Alex Brown, how would you include DEI?
I've got it.
You got it?
Yes.
Okay. 6 times.
I would say to my future colleagues, first of all, loosen up a little bit. Loosen up a little bit. We can have these discussions, okay? I think I'm gonna get my team to send this out. This is a list of all of the efforts that the town has made since I was elected for folks with disabilities. 1 in 4 Americans qualify themselves with some type of disability. When we're having a discussion around creating a new park, and somebody has to remind us to have enough ADA parking spaces, that's a problem. The chamber leadership class recently built a storage facility at one of our beach access points for wheelchair. I remember before I was elected, God bless David Jones, who just passed away about a week ago, called me up. He lived in the Bagall area and said, Alex, he's confined to a wheelchair. Alex, I can't get to the beach down here because there's no Moby mat. We have to talk about diversity. We have to talk about inclusion. And we have to talk about things being equitable. It's just what this town's about. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're going for closing statements and a summary of your positions. And we're going to start with Melinda Tunner. 2 minutes.
All right, thank you very much again for the opportunity to speak tonight and talk about the issues. My name's Melinda Tunner, and I am asking for your vote for Town Council. I believe I am the right candidate to represent Ward 6. Between my corporate background in finance, leading large organizations, large budgets, strategic planning, and policy writing, I think those skills will be useful to the Town Council. As president and treasurer of my local board of directors in Palmetto Hall, I have learned about local issues and how to work together as a community to achieve an end. And in preparation for this role, I have spent the last 14 months attending town council meetings, dedicating 400 hours of personal time, attending meetings, workshops, you name it, I'm there and participating in the process. And the reason that I did that is that I wanted to learn the process, understand how it works, and be prepared with the issues so that I could be ready on day one. So I'm just going to give a little public service announcement in regards to voting. So when you're in the voting booth, you have got to go through to the end of the ballot. Whether you vote straight ticket or you are doing individual selections, you've got to go past the Beaufort County referendums, and the town council is at the end. And for Ward 6, they saved the best for last, Melinda Tunner.
Thank you. Rex Garniewicz.
Can I go last now? I would like to sort of give a reflection on what I think is important in the island. And those are really our founding principles. And I think this island, environment, the people that live here, our way of life are really important. And that is really what I want to focus on. Should I be elected to represent you on town council? I have 10 years of experience working in state government, and I understand how governments work. I have 25 years in nonprofits. And part of that is this double bottom line. Like, I care about finances. I treat the money I spend for organizations I work for like it's my own money. I watch every penny, but I also want to make sure that money is spent fulfilling a mission. And the mission of the town is to serve you and provide the services that you need. Sidewalks so kids can walk to the high school and they don't have to walk in the road. We should invest in things like that. EMS, so that we continue to have one of the highest survival rates for heart attacks in South Carolina. You have 5 times the national average here on Hilton Head Island. If you have a heart attack, that you will be alive 5 years later. That's because we've invested in fire rescue and have great EMS support. And so I care about the environment, but I also care about saving lives and having the amenities that we want as island residents. And should you decide to elect me, I want to represent you and tell me what you need this town to provide for you in terms of resources. And I think we'll hash that out on the town council level and invest in our community.
Thank you. Amy Fee. Amy.
Thank you. So as your full-time town council representative, I will always listen to your concerns and do the best job I can to build consensus and to find mutually acceptable solutions and agreements on challenges we face. My food and beverage background and my corporate experience will help solve the problems that face our community. I will not serve myself or special interests. My vision for the future of Hilton Head is to continue to be the place that treasures the ties that bind us, family, community, friends, and our beloved natural environment. I see a place that remembers and respects history. I see a place that's committed to unity, inclusiveness, transparency, and results. I've been involved in several nonprofits and food organizations and distributions for nearly 10 years on this island. I've seen the face of need. I believe in island residents first, growing community, and protecting our island. If you share this vision for Hilton Head, vote for me, Amy Fee, and help shape our future and our legacy. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve DeSimone.
First, thank the League of Women Voters for allowing us to be here tonight. I think it was a really good forum. There's no speculation. We have no time to speculate. We can't imagine that my opponent are going to do all these things that she's talking about. You got to have a record, and I have a record. I'm the only one that has that record up here other than Alex. So when you look at the business community, for instance, I've got so many business owners endorsing me because they know that I'm good for business on this island. I have so many politicians endorsing and supporting me because they know that I know how to get it done and where to get it done. So there's no speculation. When you look back at what Steve's done, back in '96, we curbed development. We started buying property. We started that. So I have these 3 Ps. It's protect, preserve, and prosper. So we preserved the island. We started buying land and put it in a land bank. We protected the island. I don't know if any of you know this or not, but after Hugo, we all got together and decided that we need to bury all the lines. If you've noticed or not, all the lines are buried on Hilton Head Island. Well, Town Council initiated that. And then you look at our businesses, how the businesses have prospered. So for 38 years, I've been serving my community, improving people's lives, solving their problems. That's what I do, is solve problems. And that's what I will do if I'm elected. So please vote for me for Ward 3 and on November 5th. Thank you.
Thank you. Daniel Anthony.
Yeah, as I said, and you heard tonight, I'm not a politician. I don't have that polished speech that y'all are hearing or nothing like that. I don't really take too many notes. I mean, it's either in my head or in my heart, and other than that, it must not be worth it. So you heard how long I've been here, how long I've lived here. I love this island. I always have. And I will fight tooth and nail to protect it, to protect and preserve this historic and Gullah neighborhoods, because that's where the history of the island's at. I'll fight to protect the single-family neighborhoods because that's where the workforce is at. And I'm partial to the workforce because I'm part of it. I live in it. These guys, these women, I live, eat, and work with them every single day. I know what they want. I know who they are. I know them intimately. This is, it means a lot. It means a lot. This island, we're almost built out. We got to protect what's left of it, and we got to do it in the right kind of way. We can't just go by the way that we've been doing all these past decades, and I've been here for 4 of them. I've seen it happen. We've got to watch the overdevelopment. We got to watch the short-term rentals. We've got to watch what kind of people are we bringing to this island. Okay? If we want to be elite, we have to have elite rules and regulations. That's how you'll get the elite people here. If people know that they can't screw around, they won't. It's as simple as that. And we have to have the enforcement for those rules and regulations. So as I said, I'm Daniel Anthony. I'm running for Ward 1. I will be the first council person on that list. Hit that button. Thank you.
Thank you. Alex.
Yes, I know it probably would break the league's rules, but I think we need to give Ms. Kay a round of applause for being our moderator this evening. And I want to thank the league for hosting this nonpartisan event. I just want to say that I have proven the ability to build consensus on our town council. I have been able to gain experience on how to gain our county's attention. I've worked very intimately with our state delegation, and I will continue to do so. I look forward to working with some of my future colleagues up here. I am very proud, grateful, and honored to represent those in Ward 1. That's young people, old people, families, businesses, business owners, Gullahs, Hispanics, everybody. I will continue to be your voice. So I encourage everyone, starting on October 21st, which is early voting, don't get caught up in the line on November 5th. Go early and vote down at the University of South Carolina, Beaufort Hilton Head campus. And remember, if you're in Ward 1, vote Alex Brown, because then we all win.
Thank you. I have a few comments. We have cards at the back on the table with early voting details. Starts October 21st. Also at USCB, there's also location in Bluffton, and they're open Monday through Saturday, 8:30 to 6 p.m. Thank you to Mayor Perry and the town for letting us use this facility. It's a marvelous facility for a forum. And let's give a hand. Let's give a hand to all the candidates for showing up and being sharp. And lastly, thanks for attending, and to Alex Bishop for being the broadcast channel technical support. And I'm going to turn it over to Barbara now for her closing comments. Thank you all very much.
All my thunder. I just want to thank the candidates for their thoughtful, really thoughtful and informative answers to these questions, important questions tonight. I'd like to thank everyone here for coming. Again, we have cards in the back for early voting and other informational material about the league. So thanks again. We appreciate that. And there's also candidate material outside the door. So, and vote, yes, and look at Vote 411. And there's also some registration information. And if you know anyone who hasn't registered, please ask them to do so. And if you have friends that you can help get to the polls, please do that also too. So thank you, good night, and good night this evening. Thank you.
And basically the cards also include the information on Vote 411.